Real Moms Talking Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Real Moms Talking Podcast. I'm so glad you decided to tune in today because in today's episode, I want to talk about what matters when it comes to the child care and how important is the quality of the care in the kindergarten, since our kids spend every day, Monday to Friday, their core hours there. Moreover, I want to talk about the alternatives to the regular kindergarten and regular nursery, and how challenging can be even deciding to try alternatives if their approaches do not coincide with what we've learned, how we've been raised, or what we adopted as usual because it is part of our culture or our upbringing. But why am I talking about alternatives? And which alternatives? If you're curious to hear more, grab a cup of coffee or tea and settle in and keep listening. So 6 years ago, I really knew little to nothing about the daycare system in Germany and what in general young children need for their optimal development. And as our oldest son grew from the age of a baby to toddler, I realized how different children's needs can really be, and also developmental stages, even for the kids of same age. And I saw that it's so important to encourage their interest, to provide a safe environment that they can explore, that they can develop. And on one hand, some kids are very individualistic and they prefer solitude. The others are extrovert, and it's so crucial to respect this. And ideally, we should tailor learning to the children, not force them into preset expectations. And unfortunately, in my experience, it's really rarely the case in regular daycares that they do it that way. And in our case, with our oldest son, we really had caring teachers, but it still felt like something was missing. And when the time came that our middle child, our second son, comes to the nursery, the experience was really a failure. The daycare was understaffed and focus was basically only on the basic care. And our son, as a real extrovert, he expressed his unhappiness loudly, and it took us a couple of weeks to just realize that we need to seek another way, that this is not going to work. So we started reconsidering and exploring other options, and by chance, a close friend who happens to have similar experience and is a nursery teacher offered to us to take care of our son, and it really worked beautifully. She created a space where he could explore freely, and we saw how much difference that made and how he thrived in her care. And as he grew, I began looking for new solutions and discovered forest kindergarten, and a concept that at that time we didn't know much about, but we quickly learned because they had really beautiful resources about the program that they provided. And what I learned, well, I could tell you what forest kindergarten is, but I really prefer to jump one step ahead and tell you what I saw firsthand in the forest kindergarten. So let me take you to a journey of our challenges, acceptance, and adaptation as parents, and moreover, the views of grandparents. So forest kindergarten is really teachers and kids in the forest. Of course, they have dedicated place and clear borders which part of the forest belongs to the kindergarten and where they can move. So teachers know it, of course, but also kids know it. And they are taught not to leave it without parents or teachers but they can freely move wherever they prefer within the premises of the kindergarten. And you're maybe wondering, what do they do if it's really, really cold or hailing, for example? I was, at least. I was wondering, and since our middle son was only 2, when he started going to the forest nursery, I and my innermost Serbian side were worried if he would be cold. I even remember having guilt on the rainy or cold days for being in the office or home office, thinking how my kid might be freezing outside. And from this point of view, it really sounds hilarious to me. That's why I'm laughing, because, well, they do have a trailer when it's really cold and when they need to seek shelter, but they do that rarely, because the intention is rather to have a weather-appropriate clothes, both teacher and kids, so that they can spend their time outside to play, to explore. And this proper clothing, so good shoes, warm wool layers, and weatherproof outwear, they are taking care of the kids really being comfortable with the weather. And as Norwegian would say, there is no bad weather, only bad clothes. It turns out it's really true, because basically after first winter we passed in the wald, in the forest, and our son was really never complaining of cold feet or that he was uncomfortable. And he was really, after that first winter, also never healthier. No viruses, no fever, just runny nose sometimes. And that's when we really saw how this approach had a positive impact not only on his development, but on the health and his immune system. So I was really surprised to see them running around in, socks or barefoot in the late winter, early spring, often without jacket and still not getting sick. So we learned that letting the children decide when they feel cold or warm was part of the child-driven approach, allowing them to trust their own body and make these decisions on their own. But that was tremendously hard for me, to let go of the fear of them getting sick, to learn to trust them in that. That was and is one big challenge, because really, as I said, Serbian in me tells me to be worried, even though I see that they do an amazing job by self-managing these needs. They recognize when they do need jacket, they recognize when they don't. So therefore, they feel comfortable, and most importantly, they really stay healthy. So in the forest kindergarten, not only did they eat, play outside, but they also sleep outside. So younger children who are in need for a nap during the day have possibility to sleep in hammocks whole year round. So in winter, they have warm sleeping bags and wool to warm them. And it is really hard to explain how beautiful it is. I saw before how stressful can be kids falling asleep in a regular nursery or kindergarten. There are often tears and protesting. And on the contrary, all the kids that are going to sleep in the forest are very happy to jump into their hammocks. They get to fall asleep with the teachers singing to them lullabies while swinging them in the hammocks. It is something that I think one must see to understand. It's really amazing. And as probably many parents know from the time when their kids were babies, outside and on the fresh air, babies always sleep tight and long. And the same is with kids in the forest kindergarten. On the fresh air, they sleep soundly. This was something that for my husband and me was not that new, I must say, because we got used to drive bikes with our kids in the trailer all year around, and they have been doing their naps outside since day one, basically. But for the grandparents, sounded quite harsh. They were worried that sleeping outside is even more dangerous than playing outside when it is cold or raining. Besides, kid is not moving and they will for sure catch a cold, they thought. But since my mother-in-law, the grandma, did the adaptation with the boys to the forest kindergarten when they moved from the forest nursery, the younger one, and from the regular kindergarten, the older one, to the forest kindergarten, she saw firsthand that not only it was not cold to sleep in the hammock, but it was so cozy and kids really loved it. Also, by chance, my parents had a chance to visit the kindergarten when they were visiting us, and they saw kids playing all day long outside, saw them sleeping in the hammocks, eat outside, and were a bit shocked, but mostly amazed, I think, with how happy our kids and how actually they are not cold or uncomfortable in any other way with the weather. So they also had some mindset shift by experiencing the firsthand what it looks like being in the forest kindergarten. Also, one more thing that was new to us when it comes to the forest kindergarten was the forest pedagogy. Kids are allowed to explore, to try to climb, to jump, or any other thing they're capable to do, as long as they are capable to do it without teacher's help. Because, as I learned, the danger of injuries is much less if the kid is capable to do what they do on their own rather than being helped. And that again was and is not easy for little Serbian in me. The need to keep your child safe at all times is deeply written in my DNA, I think. And I know how important it is to let them explore, let them even fall or scratch as long as it's not too dangerous, in order to learn to take care on their own. But still, it's not easy for me, even though I'm getting better every day. But therefore, I'm really happy that they have that one place where they have full freedom to do this, to explore. And it was cute how the grandma from Cuba also said that for her, during the adaptation, it was amazing what all the kids in forest are capable of doing in the sense of this movement, so climbing, jumping, but that it was also at the same time so super stressful for her because she was in the constant fear that something is going to happen, someone is going to get hurt. And what truly reassured us, even when there were some doubts, was seeing firsthand how the teachers, not only that they followed this forest pedagogy, but they also truly lived it. They genuinely cared about care about nature, take an active interest in it, and they enjoy time spending outside, no matter the weather, and doesn't matter if it's, hiking, camping, or simply exploring. It's how they live. So their patience also and observant nature allow them to understand each child's needs and interests. And it became clear that this approach was not only part of their job or the teaching method they use, but it was way of life they would hold their heart embraced. Of course, there were still moments that took us by surprise, like when our middle son decided to ice skate on the frozen shallow water, with teacher being side by side by him, but he still ended up falling into it, and the teacher were quick to help him and manage the situation, but it was a learning experience for him, because he got scared, obviously, because it was a cold water. And somehow in the forest kindergarten, I think our children are free to explore while still being safe. And we've come to accept that finding sticks, stones, and other treasures, how they call it, in the forest has become part of their daily life. And they bring those stuff home. And this exploration, it has enriched, I think, their lives in a way we haven't even thought it will. And then one more thing that is very distinct for the forest kindergarten are the field trips. They do basically every day. Those are the short walks that kids take together with teacher. They bring their backpacks on these trips with their food packed, with their drinks packed within it. Kids also get to decide if they need to bring food or drinks, because maybe they believe they don't need it. And the whole concept is that it's crucial to let kids to be in control of this decision. And if they feel they do not need to carry extra box with snacks because they're not going to need it, they let them do that. And if kid is later hungry, perhaps, it's a learning process or experience for them to experience also, okay, I needed that box, I needed that food. So this experience of learning that they needed to bring something with them is even more valuable than the sole fact that they should have bring the food, so to say. So they let them pass through this experience of the consequence of their own decision. They don't let them be hungry. They split food with them, either some kid shares or some teacher shares, but they really put a lot of value on they should learn through experience. And again, this is something I actually adopted from the forest kindergarten, but it was not easy for me to let them deliberately make mistakes, so to say. But I always try to think of the main goal or why I do that. From some casual talks with our kids, I learned that through this forest exploration, they learn to have some skills that I didn't even anticipate they have, like orienting themselves in the woods, understanding the weather patterns, and using nature as a guide for making decisions. And I love learning from our kids about this stuff, because I must admit many of those stuff I did not learn, or I don't know. And they also enjoy it to teach us about it, to share their knowledge. And also interesting point is that if the kids in the forest kindergarten have conflicts, kids' perspective and opinions and feelings are validated and heard. They try to equip them with tools how to solve their conflicts on their own rather than solving them for them. So, for example, if kids are arguing over the sand toy, which are the only kind of toys they basically can have besides books in the forest, they suggest them to try trading. So one of them offers some other sand toy in exchange for the one that they want to have actually. Or if this plan doesn't work, they suggest them to make some plan how to use this toy in shifts. And even if the very young kids have conflict when they push each other or maybe scream at each other, they're teaching them to recognize what they feel at that moment and what needs they have, if they perhaps want or don't want to be with this person, and to express that to the other kid rather than just telling them off or pushing or screaming. Also, what is very interesting to notice is that the kids in the forest, they seem less agitated, and I learned that it's due to the less noisy environment. Also, they can always find a kind of a quiet corner, so to say, where they can just isolate themselves. And somehow this outdoor setting is a generally quiet environment with less noise. And in comparison to the indoor space, it supports their emotional regulation better. So this whole approach of forest kindergarten, it fosters creativity, curiosity, and definitely hands-on learning. So given that they don't have traditional toys, they have to rely on the natural world around them to spark their imagination. They learn to find solution independently, whether it's creating a swing from a wooden branch and rope, or identifying which mushrooms are safe to eat and which are dangerous. And also, what children in the forest gain is a deeper appreciation for the environment. They learn about ecosystem, how to care for plants and animals, and the importance of protecting nature. It was, at least for me, really shocking that such young kids, they really understand, or they learn to understand potential danger of, let's say, littering. So such as how discarded chewing gum can endanger birds in the forest, or leaving plastic can, how it can harm animals or plants as well. And overall, this whole model, I think it helps children build this resilience and self-confidence and a strong connection to the world around them. So this extra mess and dirty clothes and hair and hands and nails that certainly are part of the package, it's something I learned to overcome because the benefits are way bigger, and a little bit or sometimes a lot of mud or dust and dirt, it's nothing in comparison to what they'll gain by being exposed to nature in this way. So sending our kids to the forest kindergarten was a significant cultural shift for us as parents, but it was especially surprising for our extended family and friends from Serbia and Cuba. I remember when we first shared our decision, only a few people didn't express concerns or worries. Both of our extended family, they still live in the countries where we grew up. And while they were familiar with our parenting style, with our lifestyle, many of our choices, I think they questioned it or saw it as unconventional. But however, the idea of forest kindergarten, that was a whole new level, a whole new concept for them. And it challenged them, it challenged their cultural norms, their beliefs of how children should be raised. And in our home countries, I think children's care and play are typically seen through a lens of safety and protection. And the idea of young children spending most of their time outside in all weather conditions, it was almost unthinkable, I think. So for many of our relatives and friends, this seemed too harsh and unnecessary. especially given the common belief that children should be kept indoors when the weather is not good or if they are not feeling well. And never ever you should bring a kid outside if they have fever or something like that. And in Serbia and Cuba, it's seen as irresponsible simply to, for example, let kids jump and play in the puddles, or allowing or tolerating, so to say, small kids putting some sand into their mouth while playing in the sandpit, because it exposes them to the risks. So there is a cultural tendency of overprotecting and believing that any potential danger should be avoided at all costs, basically. So even though our children sometimes do complain about being bored, or they don't want to go to the kindergarten, they would rather stay at home a little bit longer. Every single time when we go to pick them up, they always beg to stay longer and if they can play a little bit more. And they are showing us what they did that day and how amazing it was. So over time, we, but also our extended family, especially the grandparents, began to see the positive impact of forest kindergarten. So what was once seen as unusual and risky became a source of admiration as they witnessed the benefits of outdoor learning and the happiness it brought to our kids, basically. So, all in all, our journey into forest kindergarten, it has been a deeply transformative experience, both for our family and for our extended network. We had to face our own doubts and fears, but also to confront surrounding and advocate our own opinions and choices, which of course made it even harder. And ultimately, this experience has shown us the power of embracing the unfamiliar and trusting that sometimes the most unconventional choices are the one that lead to the greatest rewards. And I hope that if you've had similar doubts or been searching for something like this, that my story has provided some guidance and encouragement. I want to show you that despite the unfamiliar and doubts or even questions from those around you, embracing the adventure of something like forest kindergarten can be a rewarding experience for both you and your children. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more from Real Moms Talking, where I share my stories, don't forget to hit the follow button. Be sure to rate the show and share it with your friends or colleagues. Thank you for joining me today, and stay tuned for more exciting episodes to come.